Hey everybody, welcome to day number 18. We are fast tracking into week number 3. And today's topic, we're going to be going deeper into the stack. And the stack is the tool that we use to literally shift our mindset and give ourselves a different perspective on whatever's going on in our lives that's triggering us. And you know, the typical scenario is that we're going along in life and everything's copacetic, everything looks fine, and then all of a sudden we get hit with a trigger. Something happens. It can be internal, it can be external, it could be a thought, a feeling, an action. It could be that somebody at Starbucks didn't make your latte the right way, you know. But whatever that is, it triggers something in you, and that trigger causes us to start to drift. Now the drift is the process of going from the position that you're in currently down into your pit. And so the first step in the drift is the trigger. That's the impact, the actual event that happened to us that caused us to literally get knocked off of our center where we were going. If we were headed in a certain direction, you can imagine getting sideswiped by a car. That's the trigger. The trigger gets you off track of where you're going. And that out of the trigger, we start telling ourselves stories, right? These are stories that we tell ourselves and stories we tell others about what happened, right? And those stories always bring up feelings. Those feelings tend to follow a specific pattern, especially in men. The first feeling that we tend to tap into is anger. You know, we're going along, everything's fine, everything's copacetic, and we get triggered by something, and we start the drift, and the first step is we go into anger mode. The second step is we go into frustration. So it's anger first, then frustration. We get frustrated at the person, we get frustrated with ourselves, we get frustrated with the situation. And immediately, the next stop in the drift is the blame game. We start blaming our family, our wives, our kids. We blame other people. We blame our coworkers. We blame ourselves. We blame the circumstances that we're in. And that keeps the drift going down until you eventually hit rock bottom, which is your pit. And once you're in your pit, that blame game turns on yourself. It turns internally. It goes internally into you, and you start to feel shame. You start to feel guilt, you start to feel depression, and you are dead center squarely in your pit. Okay? So let's go back again to the top. At the beginning, we get triggered. The trigger starts a story, starts us telling a story about the situation. That story brings up more and more feelings. The feelings tend to follow a certain sequence, and anger becomes the first one. Frustration's the second feeling. Blame becomes the third feeling, and then ultimately it's shame. And when we turn that anger in on ourselves, that blame in ourselves, and we start to feel that shame and guilt, that's when we're in our pit. That's when we're alone, we're isolating, we're sedating, we're suppressing, we're doing all the stupid things that we do when we get aggravated and we're in our pit, and we don't feel like there's any way out. All right, so your assignment today is the same as it always is. Number one is you're going to teach this stuff, because if you can't teach it, you don't know it. If you don't know it, you can't do it. And if you can't do it, why are you here? We're all about doing things here, not about talking about things. So part one is to teach, part two is to do. I want you to dive into the assignment and start thinking about and writing down what are the triggers, what are the feelings that you experience after the trigger. What's the story you tell yourself? What are the feelings that you're telling yourself? And specifically tap into, what am I angry about? What am I frustrated about? You know, who am I blaming? And why do I feel so much shame? All right, that's all I got for you today. Look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.